the presentation pulled up here. Okay.
Irene, I'm seeing your notes. Would you,
Okay, let me.
There we
go.
go.
Are you seeing the slideshow now? Okay.
Yep.
Are you seeing it in full screen mode?
I think so.
Okay.
I'm seeing it from the moderator's point of view, but I think that's right.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, Patty, is there a way to share a different screen here, please? There we go.
There. That's right.
Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody, for bearing with us. This is our first POP webinar that we have that we're broadcasting here. We're really excited to be with you guys today. So just give me one more second and we will get started. Okay, just another note here. The handout for today's webinar are the PowerPoint slides. So you should be able to see that it was updated today. It's got today's date on it, but you can download the handout. It's going to be in the go-to functionality in the box there. It's a PowerPoint presentation that you can it's called Handouts. You can download that and save that for reference or use it to take notes. But we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome, everybody, to the 2020 POP webinar titled Constructing a Competitive POP Application. We are really excited to have you guys on the line today, to have such a great turnout. Thank you for going virtual with us this year. Like I said, this is the first time that we've done this in a webinar format, and we're really excited to be able to share this information with you today. My name is Irene Ruiz-Briceño, and I'm the program manager for Minnesota Housing's Publicly Owned Housing Program, which we call POP. And with me today is Betsy Michaels.
Hi, everyone. I am an underwriter for the POP program. This is my first time working on POP, and I'm super excited about it. Today, we'll be walking you through an informational presentation of the program, background information, applicant and project eligibility criteria, and how to prepare a competitive and thorough application for funding. Slide 2.
So today's presentation is primarily information sharing, so all participants have been muted. However, please feel free to submit any questions using the chat box or the questions feature, and we will answer as many as we can at the very end of the presentation as time allows. Also, an important reminder, everyone that applies for the POP funding is required to have an individual technical assistance session with Betsy and myself prior to submitting your application. So you'll also want to jot down all of your questions that come up during the presentation, because you will have the opportunity to ask questions that are specific to your project during that individual TA session. Also, we are recording this session, and it will be posted to the POP webpage within the next couple of days, so you'll be able to refer back to this information. And we will keep a log of any questions submitted through the chat or the question feature that we're not able to address today, but we will review those and get back to those folks that submitted questions. So let's get started. First, I'd like to start by sharing the mission of Minnesota Housing. Housing is the foundation for success, so we collaborate with individuals, communities, and partners to create, preserve, and finance housing that is affordable. The POHP program helps further our mission by allowing us the amazing opportunity to collaborate with partners like yourself to rehabilitate and preserve critical public housing units across the entire state. A little bit of background here. The POHP program was first established in 2005. Since 2005, the program has received increased funding and support from the Minnesota legislature and continues to provide assistance to HRAs and PHAs that operate public housing.
The purpose of POHP is to rehabilitate and preserve public housing. Since it was created, the POHP program has helped fund the successful rehabilitation of over 6,000 units of publicly owned housing. POHP funds are structured as a 20-year forgivable loan with a 35-year compliance period. Currently, up to $15 million is being made available through the 2020 RFP. This slide outlines the timeline for the 2020 POHP RFP. First date to remember is the application deadline, which is April 29th, 2021 at noon. We can't accept applications after this time, so we strongly encourage you to submit prior to this deadline. Give yourself a buffer in case your computer decides to crash or your internet goes out. Submitting early also gives us the opportunity to check your application for completeness while you still have time to make any changes. Funding recommendations will be presented to the Minnesota Housing Board on July 22nd, 2021. And in the following few weeks, if you were recommended for funding, we will have launch meetings to get you started.
So the POHP program has undergone some continuous improvement, and POHP program staff has been really committed to improving the application process by streamlining, simplifying, and reducing barriers to applying. And this is because we want every PHA or HRA that is eligible to be able to successfully submit a competitive application. We know that the need for public housing rehabilitation is great, and we want to be able to fund as many critical projects as possible. So eligibility criteria, who can apply? Your development must be public housing that is owned and operated by a city or a county, HRA or PHA. It's important to note that a minimum FOS score is no longer required in order to apply. We hope that this will encourage some organizations that were previously not eligible to consider applying this year. There's no minimum or maximum amount, so you can request the amount of funding that your unique building and project requires. All or part of your project may be funded. And while we're on this slide, I do want to spend a little bit of time talking about public housing repositioning. As HUD continues to encourage and offer various options for PHAs to reposition their properties and exit the public housing program, it is important to note that POHP funding continues to be incompatible with a RAD conversion or other repositioning transaction that involves a transfer of ownership of the development to a non-public owner. Additionally, since POHP loans are funded by GEO bonds, the property must remain in public ownership for the 35-year compliance period. That means a public entity must be the owner and hold title to the development. So for example, an LLC with a public entity as its sole member does not meet the definition of a public entity. Please see the POHP program guide for more information about this, or feel free to discuss your unique situation with POHP program staff if you do have additional questions, or if you are considering a repositioning option or a RAD conversion. Eligible projects. Your project must fall into one of four categories: health and life safety, critical needs, accessibility improvements, and and water efficiency projects. And I'm going to go over each one of these categories in detail. Health and life safety projects are considered the highest priority for funding and are the most competitive. Some examples of health and life safety projects are listed on the slide. They are those projects that involve resident health or correction of a situation that could lead to someone getting hurt. This category is focused on the people that live within the building and their safety. Pictured here is an example. It's a building that was previously selected for funding to correct failing exterior walkways. The next category is critical needs. Critical needs are the most common types of proposals that we see, and they most often involve the repair or replacement of critical building components that have outlived their expected useful life. These items are usually failing or in jeopardy of failing, and or could lead to further damage of other building components. Items such as plumbing, which is pictured here, heating systems, roofing, windows, sidings, and elevators can fall into this category. This category is focused on the integrity of the actual building. Accessibility improvements are also eligible POP projects. Some examples are included on the slide, such as addressing code compliance issues or adding features to help accommodate elderly and or disabled residents at the development. And the last category is energy and water efficiency. It's important to note that energy and water efficiency projects are more competitive if they also fall into another category. So for example, a comprehensive plumbing replacement project, which is a critical need, where toilets and plumbing fixtures will be replaced with water conserving features. This is a before and after of such a project. The bathrooms in this particular development were original to the building and had been in use by residents for over 45 years. The renovations to the bathrooms resulted in decreasing the building's water consumption by almost 50%. So not only does this make the building more environmentally sustainable, but it also results in a significant reduction in water and sewer costs for the HRA. The POP program uses what we call a concept-based application. This simpler, more cost-effective application was rolled out in 2017 as a result of feedback from you guys, from the HRAs and the PHAs that have used the program. The concept-based application does not require any third-party reports, such as lead and asbestos testing or architectural plans. It is intentionally designed so that HRA staff are able to complete the application based on information they already have about the building and be able to gather all required documentation, which should be items that are readily available to you. Also, every applicant, like I mentioned before, is required to have a technical assistance meeting with POP program staff so that we can discuss and assist you in putting together your individual application. If you have not scheduled your TA session yet, please contact Cheryl Ravinius. Her contact information is on our webpage, and we're also going to share that at the end of the slideshow. The complete application package is going to include these 10 items: your POP workbook, your POP application, which are narrative questions you will answer, your most current 5-year capital fund program action plan, the most recent PHA capital needs assessment and any updates, 2 years of audited financials, the annual operating budget for the HRA or PHA, your most recent REAC inspection report, an applicant certification of known environmental conditions, which is a Minnesota housing form. We've got a link to that on our webpage. Pictures of the overall property, the existing conditions, and all proposed improvement areas, and any other information that would be relevant or appropriate to help support your proposal. I'm going to turn it over to Betsy, and she's going to go over some best practices in putting together these items.
Yeah, first we're going to just walk through the workbook real quick. This might be the most intimidating portion of the application. but like the rest of the application, this is mostly going to be stuff that you already know. And if you do get stuck on any of the items, bring your questions to our TA session, or you can just reach out to Irene or me, and we're happy to help. So the workbook is broken up into 3 tabs. Irene, whenever you can pull that up, we'll walk through it. Perfect. So tab 1 is the property information. This is just a broad overview of who you are and what your buildings look like. As you can see, the big categories on this tab are development and applicant information, funding request amount, details about your building, and your rent grid. You'll probably rework funding request after you complete the next 2 tabs. So tab 2 is the scope of work. This is where you'll list all of the items you would like funded. The drop-down menu in column D asks that you select an eligibility criterion. There's likely going to be some overlap with your items, so just select the most appropriate one. We will ask you for a cost estimate on all of your scope of work items. These do not need to be perfect. Minnesota Housing architects will review each of them. We do ask for the source of your estimate to understand how accurate your numbers are. For example, if the source is your elevator consultant and it's 2 weeks old, the architect may do less of a revision to that number than if you're just guessing. And their revised numbers are what we'll use to size our funding awards. We're not going to set you up for failure because your estimate is $150,000, even though our architect knows the real cost will be closer to $250,000. And then there are just a few more questions. Again, you will know these items and you can add any additional comments, but we will have you expand on them in your narrative, so you'll have a chance to explain anything that you'd like to. The 3rd tab is your sources and uses tab. You only need to fill out the blue cells on this, and some may not apply to your project. It does act kind of as a nice checklist of things to consider. For example, you'll see a processing agency or other consultant line item. That could be a great thing to consider if you don't have capacity to complete your renovation on your own. Under sources, we list out some common ones, but again, your project might look different, and that's fine. That's why we have those other categories. Your POP request will, in the white cell, will autofill from your property information tab. And at the end, everything will have to balance out. So you will have to, you'll probably end up revising your POP request once you've completed the rest. So that's a broad overview of the workbook. But again, if you have any questions, just reach out to us. We don't want you spinning your wheels here. So the narrative component is the POP application itself, which is item number 2 on your checklist. This is a Word document where you have the chance to tell your story. You will do this by answering a series of questions in a narrative format, and your responses should tell the reader in detail 3 main things. Number 1, describe your building and your proposed project. What makes your building important to the community? Why is your proposed project important? What would happen if your project was not funded? Would people get hurt? Would the units have to be taken offline? We are not asking you to hire an architect or get any new third-party reports at this time. You are the expert on your project. So talk with your maintenance staff or your site manager. You can use estimates on costs that you've gotten in the past. All of the information you need to complete your application, you already have. The second thing we ask is to explain your leverage. or the other funds you can bring to the project. Irene will go into detail on leverage in just a minute here. The third thing is to demonstrate your organization's capacity to get through the project successfully. Like I mentioned before, if you don't have capacity, then explain your plan to mitigate that. The examples I gave are partnering with a nonprofit or hiring a processing agent. You can tell us about other rehabs you've completed successfully, or any other experience you are bringing to the table. We will discuss all of these items during our TA sessions, but Irene and I might not be the people who are reviewing your application. So your application should make sense to someone who is hearing about your project for the very first time. Next slide, please. So we do require that you include photographs with your applications, and that is because we have found out that they are very important. The person reviewing your application won't get the opportunity to do a site visit, so photos with descriptions are very important in understanding the project you want to complete. So these are some great examples. As the slide says, wood blocks are placed at some units by maintenance staff due to toilets breaking free of the carriers, causing medical calls by residents who find themselves lying on the floor due to the mounting of the toilet. As you can see, if the applicant only said the words, "We want to replace the toilets," in their application, we would not have understood why this was so important. So this is another great example of how a caption is really important in telling your story. You want your application to be clear to someone who's not an architect or is not a maintenance person. So without the caption, degrading chip wall and sill due to moisture, I might look at that and just think that it needs a paint job. So again, just explaining everything that you think is important. The next slide kind of speaks for itself. I'll just let you read that. So in your application, you'll have the option to include anything else that you think is important in telling your story and supporting your proposal. Some examples we've seen in the past include energy audits, letters from local officials in support of the project, letters from residents, documented code violations, and elevator records. As you can see on the slide, another applicant also included a news article.
Thanks, Betsy. I'm going to switch gears a little bit and talk about the importance of partnership. Competitive applications are often those projects that can leverage other funds or utilize creative partnerships in order to complete the project. Some examples that we have seen in the past include working with the city or the county departments. Do they have local funds that can be directed towards this project? Can they waive building permit fees or other local fees? Also, local utility providers may be able to partner with you to provide incentives or rebates if your project includes an energy efficiency component. Additional sources of funds that we've seen prior applicants bring to their projects include funds from the Small Cities Development Program, local organizations, the Federal Home Loan Bank's Affordable Housing Program, energy rebates, as mentioned previously, and sales tax rebates or exemptions. Keep in mind that Minnesota Housing does have a clean energy program specialist as part of our staff. Some of you may have worked with her in the past. Her name is Catherine Teakin, and she can help connect you to local resources for weatherization and energy rebates. Feel free to request her contact information from one of us, and we'd be happy to make that connection. So we hope this webinar has helped you understand the POP program, and you've started to kind of think creatively about your project. How will you tell the story? Where could you seek additional leverage? And where could you look for opportunities for partnerships? Those are the elements that will help you develop a competitive application that stands out. So your next steps after today should be, number one, if you haven't already, set up that technical assistance meeting with the POP program staff. This is where you'll have the opportunity to discuss your building and your unique proposal in detail. A best practice is to take the time to look at some of the application materials, such as the application itself with the narrative questions, the checklist, the workbook. Look at those things ahead of time, write down your questions, and use the technical assistance meeting to get all of those questions answered. Step number 2 is going to be to identify and document your rehab project. Take good pictures and include detailed descriptions, just like Betsy was going over. Gather your supporting documentation. Your building maintenance person is going to be really valuable in helping with this part of the application because of their knowledge of the building and its needs. So make sure to tap into their expertise. Step number 3 is going to be to complete that application and gather all of your submittals. Take the time to work through the narrative questions and familiarize yourself with the application checklist so you can start to locate the necessary documents and pull it all together. And finally, step number 4 is to submit your complete application package by the deadline. Remember, a complete application package is considered to be all 10 items on that checklist. It's important that all 10 items are submitted or the application could be deemed incomplete. The system that you're going to use to submit your POP application is Minnesota Housing's Secure Upload tool. There is a document on the POP webpage that is called RFP Instructions, and it has a detailed step-by-step instructions on how to use the Secure Upload tool to submit your application. But I want to take this time just to do a brief demonstration to help familiarize you with that system. So from our homepage, which is mnhousing.gov, you're going to locate the partner login link in the upper right-hand corner. Once you click on that, you're going to scroll down to the multifamily Secure Upload tool. From this screen, you're going to click on Secure Upload. And here's where you enter the recipient email address, which is mhfa.app@state.mn.us, and click Start. On this screen, you're going to fill in the fields with your name and email address. And you're also going to put in a subject line. This could be the name of your HRA or your building name. A brief description is also required. And from here, you can select files to send, which is considered a regular upload. Once you click here, it's going to open a dialog box that you can use to navigate to the files on your computer. And from there, it's really similar to how you would attach a file to an email. Feel free to contact someone on the POP team before you do your upload, and we're happy to walk you through this step by step. You can also call or email us after you upload your application, and we can confirm that it was received. So I think, Betsy, if you want to take a look at the questions box, I think we do have some time here now where we can address some of those questions. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
Absolutely. All right, question number 1. Is an estimate from a rehab specialist allowed? Irene, do you want me to answer, or do you want to go ahead and answer that one?
Go ahead and take that question, Betsy. That's a great question.
I think that would be a great source for an estimate. Absolutely.
Yes, and we know that a lot of HRAs have rehab specialists on staff, or they could partner with a local nonprofit or neighboring HRA to help them tap into a rehab specialist that might help with pulling together a cost estimate.
Let's see. Would you classify capital fund program monies as leverage? Absolutely. That is probably one of the most common sources of leverage that we see. Irene, do you want to talk about some more?
Yes, we
see for leverage.
That one pretty much across the board. We would expect the HRA or the PHA to participate with some of their capital funds. A lot of people ask about amounts. You know, what's the amount of leverage that's going to make your proposal competitive? And you know, we have selected projects for funding that have very low leverage just because the project itself was very critical and needed to be addressed. And, you know, we've seen other applicants being able to bring in quite a bit of leverage and just needing a little bit of pop to help kind of bridge that funding gap. So there's really no standard amount. I can say that on average, we see, you know, anywhere from maybe the 20 to 35% of the project being funded by non-POP funds. So I'll say that again, 20 to about 35% is, again, an average. We see much lower, we see much higher, but that's a good kind of ballpark average amount of funds that the applicant is proposing to cover, and then POP would cover the rest.
Right. Question 3. What was the email we need to use to get into the portal? The email before our personal email. So I believe that was referring to secure upload tool. Irene, is that something you can easily pull up once again?
Yes, I'm going to pull that up right now. Okay. I want to call something out though. The POP program does not use the portal. So if you've submitted applications to Minnesota Housing using the portal, you're not going to be using that system. This is the secure upload tool. So jot this down, make a note. We are not using the portal. Don't create a portal account. Don't use a portal account if you already have one. You have to use the secure upload tool. So I want to make that distinction. And I believe what the question is asking is, what is the recipient email address? When you're doing your secure upload, it's going to be mhfa.app@state.mn.us. So in order to use this system, you do not have to create an account. If you're creating an account, you're in the wrong system. There are multiple systems on our website to submit different applications for different sources of funding. If you think you've gotten down a rabbit hole and gotten to the wrong place on our website, please call Betsy or myself and we will steer you back to the right path. Betsy, do you have any other questions? These are really great.
Yeah, those are all of the questions that we've received so far. We could give it a couple more minutes, but otherwise, oh, here's one. Is a capital needs assessment, I'm assuming, required for the application? We do ask for the most recent capital needs assessment you have on file. You do not need to get a new capital needs assessment completed.
That's correct, and we recognize that it might be a little bit old, but we'll take whatever your organization has as the most recent information.
Yep. Betsy's phone number. Let's see, is that on the POP webpage? It might not be. Oh, there it is. Excellent.
I just pulled up the next slide here. It's got our phone number.
Perfect.
I've also included Cheryl Rabinius on here. She is your contact person. She's looking at all of our calendars to set up those TA appointments if you haven't done that yet. So feel free to email or call Cheryl. And then Betsy and myself are there with any questions or any further technical assistance. I do want to say that after you do have your technical assistance appointment with us, we definitely don't consider that to be kind of a one and done situation. If you come up with questions or you're hitting snags after you've already had your TA appointment, feel free to reach out again. We're here. We want to support everybody with their applications and make sure that once you hit that send button to us, that you feel really successful about the application that you put together.
Absolutely. Let's see. I'm just going to pull up. Are there special naming conventions needed for each of the uploads? That is an excellent question. We ask that you follow the checklist numbering guide or system. It's not required. We'll figure it out if it isn't, but it does help us make sure that everything we ask for is there.
Right, and I do want to mention something that previous applicants have done in the past is take all of their materials after and print them and then run them through the scanner as one big PDF. That is not a best practice. So when you send your items, they really should be 10 separate files, each numbered and named accordingly, because parts of your application get routed to different places for review. So certain things, like Betsy mentioned earlier, go to the staff architects for review. Some stay with the POP team. You know, they do, so it's easier for us when everything is separated to make sure that, number one, it puts you in a defendable position to make sure that you said, yep, my application was complete and all of the pieces were there and accounted for. And number two, it just makes the review of your application much more efficient. We can get those pieces to the right folks here at the agency that are helping us look at all of the components. So yeah, naming convention, if you can name your item, but most importantly, at the beginning of the name, add the number of the item that corresponds to the checklist. That's the best way. Those are the cleanest applications that come through to us.
Absolutely. And if you do end up having several items you're including under the catch-all number 10, you can pull those out separately, do 10A, 10B, 10C, just so we don't miss something that's important to your application. Let's see. Does the CNA have to be done by an independent third party, or is a 20-year capital plan acceptable?
We're not requiring you to pay for something that you don't already have. So if you have a CNA that has been done by a third party and it's fairly recent, great. If you have your 20-year cap program, if that's what you have, then you should send that to us. And again, this is for application purposes. If you are selected for funding and our staff architect recommends further inspections or you know, anything additional, that would come after you're selected for funding. I guess the biggest complaints that we heard from our applicants was that it was really hard to justify investing and paying for reports to put together an application when there was no guarantee that they were going to be funded. So we really wanted to address that pain point. And yeah, so again, we can, during your TA session, or if you want to reach out to Betsy and myself about what specifically you have in your records, we can talk that through with you. But the point is that you shouldn't have to go out and pay for something that you don't already have. Usually we can work with what you already have in your archives.
Okay. My capital needs assessment document is massive and I don't think it could be uploaded. Could I send an executive summary instead? This secure upload tool is designed for very large documents. If you're struggling because of your internet connection or something like that, we can figure out another way for you to submit it. But I think Irene, do you have any thoughts on that?
I mean, depending on what the project is, the executive summary might be sufficient. That could be something, rather than waiting to submit your application, it might be something that you would, Betsy or I could take a look at ahead of time and advise you accordingly based on your project, based on how huge it is. And then we could also, quickly get the input of one of our staff architects to see, what they would prefer, or just to make sure that our staff architects have enough information in order to do their review. So yeah, I would say that that specific question could be sent to me and Betsy, and we can help kind of troubleshoot that particular issue. But if you've got this really great CNA, but it's huge, yeah, depending on the architect, they might want to see that, or if the executive summary is really robust and it covers your project that you're proposing POP funding for, that might do it too. So I would say send that to us offline. We're happy to help with that situation.
Yep. Can you share the contact info for the person that can connect us with energy rebates? So that would be Ms. Catherine Teakin, or can we contact you two first? That's a great question, Irene. I'll let you answer that one.
I'm going to pull it up right now. It's on our program guide. So on mnhousing.gov, if you click through to the POP program, I know I'm doing this kind of quickly because we're getting close to the end of our presentation here, but on the POP page, we have our program guide, and Catherine's information is in the program guide. Oh, and now I've got to download it. Yep, Catherine is listed under section 6.07 of the POP program guide. Got phone number and email address for you there.
Excellent. So that looks like all of our questions so far. Again, we know that each of your projects is going to be vastly different. So come with those project-specific questions to TA, and you can always call or send us an email.
Good, yeah, thank you for all of those questions. They were really great, and I think they really helped kind of fill in some of the gaps in our presentation and make sure that everybody's getting all of this information.
Right. And I know we covered a lot of information today, but like Irene mentioned, a recording of this will be online in a few days. And we look forward to talking with all of you again. We are certainly around to help.
Yes, and you are a valuable partner to Minnesota Housing, and we just really appreciate the opportunity to be able to preserve these important public housing developments through the POP program. We look forward to having technical assistance meetings with those of you that haven't had theirs yet. And we look forward to seeing all of the proposals and applications come in, and we just thank you for taking the time today to go through this information.
All right, thank you, everyone. We'll talk.
And with that, yes, have an excellent week, and we'll be in touch. Take care, everybody.